Good morning, everybody. Today we're gonna do something different. We're gonna have a look at the illuvium talks together. That's kind of a podcast that Andrew Wall is doing. He always invites some different kind of guests and talks about Web3 stuff, crypto stuff. And yeah, I thought why not check it out together, have a look at it, and see what they're saying. So in this one we got TSG, we got Hitha Herzog, and we got GizmoSlip, and of course Andrew Wall. We're gonna talk
all right. Let's do this, everybody. Welcome
illuvium.
to Illuva Talks, the show where we lead the conversation about the crypto, NFT, and GameFi industries. My name is Andrew Wall, host and executive producer at Illuvium, and today's episode is going to be mind-bending. It's going to be mind-blowing. We have some of the smartest people on the internet here with us today. Web3, is it killing retail? We're going to be tokenizing the world. And Apple's got a 30% NFT tax. Holy moly. Meta's got a 50% tax. How do we move forward as an industry? Those are the topics we're talking about today. And it's very important that all of you understand that nothing we discuss on the episode today is financial advice. This might be a part of your research, listening to incredibly good-looking and smart people like me and my guests. Sure. You're a genius for doing that, but it isn't financial advice. But you already knew that because you're watching the show, which means you're smarter than the average person. Speaking of smarter than the average person, a dear friend of mine I've worked with for years. Let me just line this up for you, Hitha, and then I'll bring you in here. Hitha Herzog. Have you seen her on CNBC? Maybe. Have you seen her on Fox? Maybe. Is she a professor at Parsons in New York? Who knows? Wasn't she on the cover of some magazine you've seen her on? She's a finance analyst for top tech companies and finance companies. You cannot believe everything this woman has done. And she's here as retail expert and finance expert to drop bombs on us today. Hitha Herzog in the house. What's up, my friend?
Hey, my friend. It's so good to see you. And thanks for having me here. I'm excited to discuss all things Web3 and where retail is going to be.
Indeed. I'm very excited to discuss that with you. We also have a couple other really exciting guests, including Brandon from GizmoSlip. You may have seen his videos on YouTube 600 million times. Brandon on the show. What's up, buddy?
Hey, I'm glad to be here. Thanks for having me on the show. Looking forward to discussing the topics today.
Don't know this guy. You gotta check him out.
Perfect. And also we've got our maybe the most enthusiastic person there is in the DeFi and gaming space. I have to bring him in. These conversations can get maybe too serious. We need his youthful energy. He's a ray of sunshine for the gaming and DeFi space. Obviously, Illuvium's influencer managers, who I'm talking about. TSG in the house. What's up, buddy?
Yo,
what
what's
an
happening?
introduction.
A ray of sunshine. I take it. I'll take it. Appreciate you. Appreciate you
That's
having me
good.
on, man. And I'm really excited to have the chat with the other panel, or with the rest of the panel. Feel like it's going to be a good one.
It better be a good one. Otherwise, I'm booting you guys off the show permanently. Viewers, I guarantee you will learn at least 2 new things on this episode about technology. If you don't, never watch the show again. So the first topic we're going to talk about today
let's see how much we learn.
Is Web3 killing retail? Okay, well, perhaps it is, perhaps it's not. Let's just give a little bit of context here, and then we'll bring in the retail expert on the show. So some headlines, not headphones, headlines you may have heard is some headlines are saying e-commerce hasn't killed physical retail. In fact, it's more important than ever, says this piece, probably by someone who has a stake in the retail industry. Check. You might have seen physical retailers like GameStop launch a NFT marketplace, understanding that their physical gaming business needs to be complemented by this new digital Web3 space. And we're seeing basically
I believe
a grappling
GameStop is
of
also
digital
partnering up with
sales
Illuvium, right?
and digital platforms eating into the profits and the revenue of physical retail. We've all seen it in our own lives. How many times have you ordered stuff on Amazon or digital retailers versus physical? A lot more as each year passes. So Hitha, I got to kick it over to you. You study this every day. You are maybe the world leading expert on retail. With Web 2 players like Amazon coming in, taking business, with COVID coming in, taking business, now Web 3 coming in, taking business, is digital technology going to just straight up kill retail? What do you think?
I don't think retail will necessarily die, right? We always need.
Yeah, I don't think so either. Like, it's gonna be impossible to not buy stuff in retail. Especially, I don't think like all the world is gonna be modernized in the very future. Like, there's always gonna be old school people who don't want to buy stuff online, and that's how it should be. Like, I really like local markets and stuff like this, and local companies. So yeah.
Need things. We need to purchase items. We need products. I think you are correct, though. When the pandemic happened, there was a real bifurcation between the consumer that went into stores or were even allowed to go into stores. Here in New York, we were under a serious lockdown. Everything had to be sent to our homes. I know other places in the United States and around the world, it was a little bit looser. But those people that had to get everything sent to their homes, we kind of got used to that. And that, setting that infrastructure and making that happen seamlessly so retail didn't lose business took a lot of effort. And to dismantle that, well, why fix something that isn't broken, right? So suddenly we're seeing the consumer buy differently. And even when you see this, it's not just the giant stores. It's not like the Walmarts or the Amazons of the world. It's also smaller businesses. So I'm sure a lot of your viewers out there probably run
big
their own
ones
small
definitely
businesses.
profited the most.
I'm also a fellow at a think tank in DC called the Data Catalyst Institute.
How do you have time to do all this? You're in these think tanks. You're a professor. Like,
I'm pretty sure like most of small businesses suffered in COVID
H2
a lot.
media business.
Right?
You do all the financial publishing stuff with me. Do you have a twin?
I don't have a twin, but I do have twins. I have twin toddlers.
Like most of the small companies, I think,
there's
died,
no way
right?
I could do everything that I do.
There's not many who survived COVID.
A ton of help and very little sleep.
I feel like
I know that.
I mean, anyone with small kids, right? But I was saying that rural sellers, small businesses, are getting on the bandwagon of e-commerce. So this isn't something that is going to go away anytime soon. So I think it's not necessarily that it is killing retail, but in one sense, it's evolving it. And we as consumers and people who are creators need to evolve with it. So, and I think that's what's happening with definitely the people that are watching. We're looking for new ways to make our craft and sell it. So this is certainly a platform that you could do it on.
Yeah,
I'm going to give you the first crack on the follow-up here.
Definitely
going to
evolve.
give it to our other guests on this because I'm sure we've all got opinions. The follow-up on that is
jump in there into the e-commerce.
Evolving retail is what you're saying. I agree, but can physical and digital retail, if you will, coexist? And I understand we're moving toward that. So when you talk about e-commerce, you're talking about Web 2 commerce.
Right.
Now we're moving into Web 3 commerce, which even more so than e-commerce takes out the centralization. It takes out the middleman. It makes things even more decentralized.
Absolutely.
So is the coexistence of digital and physical retail moving forward? Is it NFTs? Is it going into the store, buying a pair of shoes and getting a digital add-on on top of that? What is the coexistence scenario where Web3 helps retail grow and doesn't just, let's say, demonetize it into oblivion?
So as we know retail as we know it now, and Web3, right? Can they coexist as we know it now? I would say no. But again, we're talking about the evolution of this, right? And we're talking about the evolution of the consumer. So, 10 years, how long have iPhones been around for? Like what, 15 years, 18 years now? Maybe my math is off.
Yeah, it was like 2004 or so it came out. Somebody Google that.
So we're approaching almost 20 years, right? 20 years ago, we wouldn't even think to look at our phones, to have mini computers in our pockets, right? The same thing is going to happen with retail and Web3.
That's basically what phones were, mini computers.
Go into
from the get-go,
alternate universe to maybe get an add-on for a special pair of Nike, Air Jordans, if you're someone that wears those. Or if you're someone like me who really likes to buy a lot of Gucci items when I have the money for that, maybe I want something that's rare and a collectible. We as consumers don't know we need it until it's put in our face, and it's easily accessible. So right now, when people are using Web3, it's not accessible to everyone. That's how technology happens. It starts with people who are very, very evolved and very, very technologically savvy, i.e., the people who are watching this stream and us. And then it becomes less and less difficult to access. It becomes easier, it becomes democratized. And once we see that democratization, that is when we're going to see that coexistence of Web3 and physical retail hang together.
Got it. Let me ask, that was a good answer. TSG, I got to kick this over to you. So do you see a world where you go out, go buy the things you like to buy? Do you see yourself going to that physical retail store and maybe having a better experience, or being incentivized to physically go somewhere because there's a digital add-on, or because there's a digital tie-in, or because there's an NFT tie-in to the physical products that you're buying to your digital life? Do you see that being a boon, or do you see that being dumb and gimmicky, and what's the point? I'd be curious to know what your thoughts on that are.
Yeah, so this is pretty funny because I don't leave my house. Like, I just don't. And I think that's gonna be the same for like a lot of people moving forward. Like, time is the biggest commodity right now, right? Like, a lot of us are getting busier as things go on, where we're just working
At
harder
me
and harder.
or
Time is the most valuable asset. So I'm not saying that it's impossible, but and maybe like the people in the super top tier of society where they have an abundance of time, maybe that does it for them. But I think for the majority of people, for the masses, that NFT or that digital add-on needs to be one hell of an add-on. It needs to be like next level to incentivize people. How often do you guys have, I won't say you guys, but how often do we know of people that say they get invited to a party and they kind of hoping on the last minute that it gets canceled or something like that, right? Just because they don't want to leave their house. So that's for hanging out with friends. And now you're saying, oh, I want to go out and buy. I think that a lot, and I even actually I asked my wife because I know I don't go out and buy things, but yeah, I buy legitimately. I only go downstairs
you need fresh
to buy
air.
some water every day. Like, that's the only. I go to the gym and go downstairs to buy water. That's all I do. But I asked my wife to prepare for this as well, and I was like, "Yo, I don't go out like that, but and I don't go shopping. But what about you? Like, out of 100%, how much of your shopping is online, where you get it delivered to you, like clothes and everything like that, and how much is it like in actual retail store?" And she was like 80%. 80% is online, and for a female to buy, I don't know, maybe Heather, you can tell me, but for a female to spend 80% of her purchasing online, to me seems crazy. Just because I would have assumed that they'd want to
Not
try
crazy.
it on and make sure all the is that normal?
Yeah, no, it's absolutely
Yeah.
normal. I'm telling you, the way that we shop, and let me just, if we're going to be gender specific, I know that there's this whole idea of women like to gather their friends and link arms and go through the mall and shop.
Yeah, he definitely hit a sensible point with putting it all on the females right away. Well, I personally try to just consume as little as possible and do a lot. Like, I like to go a lot to thrift stores, especially for clothes and everything. Like, I really like reusing stuff and not just buying new. But that's just me. Like, I'm really against too much consumerism, and I'll try to have a really small footprint. But yeah, when I was younger and I used to needed to buy stuff in the stores, like clothes in the stores, I would hate it. Like, I really don't like buying anything in the stores except food. So I can get on board with that. And right now, like, for me to get anything at a retail store, I would have to drive to a city and all of that. So sometimes I feel like actually like driving somewhere and all of that stuff would be way a bigger footprint than I just buy it on big evil corporate Amazon. And yeah, it's definitely the lazy and easy and good way to do it. Like, it's not the good way. I don't know if it's the good way. I'm getting too philosophical about Amazon. Sometimes I feel bad ordering too much on Amazon, but like I said, I don't want to drive to a city just to go shopping there. If I was living in a city, that would be probably different. Like, when I was living in Vienna, I was not ordering online so much because the stuff was actually close to me. You know what I mean? I'm curious if the conversation keeps on going and like gender stereotypes or if they're gonna generalize it again. Because like everybody needs the same stuff. There is this stereotype that women shop a lot, but I don't know. I can say the same about many male people that I've met and known.
Shop and drink and have a day.
That sounds like the 1990s. I don't know. I haven't seen that I haven't seen that this
No, that's-
century.
That's my wife, though. I'm not gonna lie. That's,
Drink and up. And let me just, if we're
Let's
gonna
rehear
be
that.
gender specific, I know that there's this whole idea of women like to gather their friends and link arms and go through the mall and shop and drink and have a day.
That sounds like the 1990s.
I never do that.
I don't know. I haven't seen that I haven't seen that this
No, that's-
century.
that's my wife, though. I'm
It's
not gonna
not
lie.
of
That's
the
that's
century.
why my wife said she doesn't go out.
Yeah,
She's like, I can't get together.
It is. I mean, it's impossible to just get my friends on a phone call. How can I get them out of the house to go shopping? And to be quite honest, and I'm going to take a page from what you said. It's just time consuming. It's if you think of the return on investment, leaving the house, getting in your car, getting yourself cute, going outside. It doesn't make a difference. You could hang out with your friends over a nice dinner and get all of your clothes sent to your home. Now, one thing that I think everyone should understand too is that retailers are realizing that people are getting all of their stuff sent to their homes. We try them on in our homes and then we leave, or we return them, right? So now retailers are going to start charging a return fee for those returned items. It's called bracketing. So when you buy a ton
so.
of stuff and get it sent to your house and try it on, to quote Taylor Swift, "Hi, I'm the problem." That's what I do too, and I send that back. And right now,
I never did that, but I heard about people like ordering 5 pairs of shoes just to pick one in the end.
Yeah.
Ahead of the front end with the selling, they're going to start charging people. So that's
far,
one thing that's a little bit annoying. But yeah, who goes and shops with their friends anymore? I certainly don't.
Yeah, and
Maybe we're a unique group here of try hard, work from home, self-employed type people, and so we're a certain type for sure. All three of us, right? I want to kick this over to Brandon. So, do you see?
I had a thought
ahead.
on TSG. Your question asked TSG there about the add-ons you get from, like, say, an NFT add-on to something that you buy in retail.
Mhm.
I think the key there is really like. When we reach mass adoption with Web3 technology, and say everyone gets a Web3 identity the same way you have a driver's license, maybe it's even officially government backed or certified. At that level of adoption, I think is when we're going to see real advantages to the Web3 technology and integrating Web3 products with, let's say, luxury purchases. You buy a Gucci purse or a very expensive car, you might get access to some VIP lounge that's specific to an NFT, or it comes with digital asset ownership as well. But there's going to be way more levels of integration in the future if Web3 is fully adopted, especially on a governmental level, and an identity-based level,
I'm not sure if
we may or may not see in the near future. Right, it may take a long time, but eventually.
Well, I gotta cut you off there, and I gotta cut you off. Really
I want to cut him off as well.
You.
I don't know if Web2 people ever, like, if we're gonna have a mass adoption of Web3, I don't think it's through like identities. Like everybody, it would be nice if everybody would be doxxed, but like that's the whole point of internet, that you're anonym. Like, there's a lot of bad sides coming with it too, like internet crime and all of that stuff. And I heard a really good solution to that, where you just have to pay like a little fee. Like I pay $2 to use the internet this month, and if I do a violation, like a scam or something, those $2 are gonna be taken away. And so you can't like send out 1 million scams, because it would cost you $2 million. Know what I mean? Just to have like a sign up, kind of. Your Web3 identity isn't doxed with your real identity, but it's just your library pass, which costed $2 lifetime membership, and you can lose it if you do scam and bad stuff like this. So that way the bots and the scam bots could be worked against. But yeah, I don't think we should, and we want to have like your Web3 identity being fully doxed online, like a driving license, backed by the government and everything. Like, that's the whole point, that we're getting decentralized, right?
what's happening already today. Look at this.
Sure.
I just visited Australia on a business trip. They already have a digital identity system in place. So when you go to Australia, they don't use pieces of plastic or cash or checks to interact with each other. Everything's on your phone. So you go create, if you're an Australian citizen, a digital identity for yourself. It's on your iPhone.
Yeah, but
And you just
that's your
boot
real
your
life
identity
ID in the internet.
everywhere.
What I've
You
been
boot your
talking
payments
about
everywhere.
is having an
No one
ID
inserts a credit card
for
into
using
anything.
the internet.
You just boop with your phone. So digital identity is already here. This is not necessarily on the blockchain, but it's already here.
Right.
And it's adopted by tens of millions of people
This
in
is
one
a
of
digital
the most
ID for the
significant,
real world,
countries and
not
economies in the
for
world.
the digital
so this
world,
is, I just
right?
want you to know, this is already here. And it's already working. And this is not some fantasy future. I see this
Right,
being
but
the way it's going to
Would we
the
say
way it's
that
going.
that's Web 2? Or would you say that that's Web 3, though, right? That was probably Web 2 technology versus Web 3. That's the key difference, I think, there. And the level of that it's a centralized identity versus a decentralized one, or at least ties into a decentralized network or interface, which is going to be, I think, the key to integrating with other Web 3 products and technologies. So we'll have to see how all of that plays out. But it's really cool to see Australia doing that full digital online identity, because that's key, right, to being able to integrate all of these digital products and integrate them to the real life physical.
Yeah, I would say something that Web 2 tech you're seeing there is a bridge, I think, to the Web 3 version in the future. I think the next step for governments around the world is have a centralized digital identity. Then eventually there may be a decentralized digital identity, maybe not. Governments obviously don't want to let go of that power. Let's move on to the next topic, because we're talking about people spending all their time in their homes, going all digital. Well, you want to talk about somebody who went all digital with their homes. GizmoSlip, Brandon here, sold his home for $700,000, says your thumbnail. I'll pull it up right now. And you sold your home for $700,000 for crypto and stocks. You're freaking crazy, bro. So you got to tell us, why did you do this? Why are you funneling your resources from, let's say, physical assets over to crypto? This is this is kind of a crazy headline type of story, but it happened in real life, and here you are. So why did you do that?
I hope he did it
primarily,
now
I
at
would
the
say
end of the
number one factor
bear
was
market.
trying to time the market as best I could, and also in combination with I wanted better diversification of my assets. Of course, I have a 401k, I have retirement funds, I own stocks, but I also wanted some higher risk investment in my portfolio, and I do plan on buying another house. So given the fact that the interest rates were skyrocketing with the Fed, it was pretty easy to predict the housing market decline, which has already declined 10 to 15% in most of the United States. So when you're looking at the housing market, basically I sold right at the tail end of the bull market for the housing market, right before the interest rates
nailed the timing.
skyrocketed.
Good job.
Nailed
Good
it.
job.
Yeah. So that was the key part of it. And then I wanted to be able to buy the dip, and I wanted some liquid cash to be able to buy that dip. And I have been buying the dip. And so I have been buying the juicy ILV dip as well. Notice my illuvium background here. So
you do have the coolest studio out of all three of us. I got it. So you converted your physical property. You're looking to convert it into digital property. And there's more and more stories about this going both ways. I also follow a YouTuber, it's called Digital Asset News, and he went the other direction in the crypto bull market last year. He sold toward the top his crypto so that he could buy real estate. So obviously, we can see this going both ways. So I want to bring this up because this begs the question of the tokenization of assets in the future. I just went through the process a couple years ago. You just went through the process, and I bet a lot of our viewers have gone through the process of working with multiple middlemen, a deed company, some legal company, a mortgage company, a realtor, the government. There's like 7,000 third parties coming in here charging you tens of thousands of dollars for you to just sell your house that you own. So
That's awful.
Is there a better way? Well, some of the ideas out there include what folks like DigiShares is doing. Basically, tokenizing real estate is what they're aiming to do. I'm not saying they're pulling this off and I'm not recommending them, but they're looking to tokenize real estate so that you could sell it on the blockchain, you could avoid the third parties, and potentially you could split one piece of real estate, let's say multiple ways, and have multiple owners. And this has been an idea that has captured the attention of many people out there.
That's
but
pretty
my
cool.
understanding, based on my research, is cool idea. We could see this happening in the future, fractionalized real estate, that type of thing, but you need the government to buy in. So the question I want to ask you guys, and I want to kick this over to Hitha first, is will governments allow the control of things like real estate deeds to become decentralized? Wouldn't they be putting themselves out of a job? And to my knowledge, all government workers and politicians want to do is expand their scope and expand their jobs. That's how you succeed. This seems like this would put a lot of governments, local and state primarily, out of business. What are your thoughts on tokenized real estate?
1,000%. And I'm part of your group. We didn't really sell. We didn't sell a home, but we bought our apartment, almost 10 years ago. And then I had to completely gut renovate it so you could see this beautiful studio that I'm sitting in that looks like it literally is a room that I'm sitting in. Sorry about the background, but
This beautiful gray wall.
I was going through all of the renovations on this studio, and we had some bureaucratic. I mean, it was so ridiculous. I had to pay someone $500 to just basically check like some sort of piping or something. It was just so dumb, and he had to keep coming back, and it was more money. So to answer your question, I think the government has a tendency, obviously, to want to save themselves and save their jobs. And if tokenization meant the elimination of that, definitely. But I really am a firm believer in blockchain, and in blockchain being the foundation for transactions like real estate. And also, not to kick it back to the retail discussion, but I just want to mention this one thing. When it comes to buying luxury goods, and you could probably loop real estate into this, because obviously we're dealing with hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of land at some point, unless you're buying land in New Mexico, in which case it's like 45,000 if you go way out into the rural areas. But you're dealing with things that are worth a lot of money, and that blockchain is able to, obviously it's still in its nascent stage, but once we get there, you are going to be able to see that provenance. And I think that is what is so important about this. And this is what I love so much about blockchain when it comes to luxury items. I wrote my book, Black Market Billions, and I followed the money trail of stolen luxury items and how that funded a terrorist cell in Latin America. So when I saw blockchain kind of come, emerge as something that people were interested in, kind of having it be a little bit more user friendly, I thought immediately, here's a solution that makes sense. And when it comes to real estate, at the same time, it really makes sense to do this. Again, I don't think we're there yet. I think this is a very, very early stage. But the fact that we're even having this conversation now means that something is brewing. And I want to ask you, Brandon, did you sell your house before, what's his name, Blankman Fried decided to go bananas with the FTX? Or was this after?
Scam Bankman fraud.
So I sold my house in April this year. So it was quite a few months ago.
So was it like November?
Yeah, no, and I've been putting my money incrementally into crypto over time as the dip occurred. So yeah.
Okay.
So this wasn't an all-in, hey honey, trust me, this crypto thing's gonna work out. Let's sell the farm or whatever. This was a calculated move. That makes sense. So thank you for bringing that up, Hitha. Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say my girl was on board with it all. Actually, she was 100%. She is also into crypto as well. So it's kind of nice having a Web3 life partner as well. Regarding your question, right, of will governments allow controlled real estate to become decentralized, and would they be putting themselves out of a job? I do think that governments are probably not going to be very eager to give away control of property, especially because that essentially makes up the land of their country. But I think that there will be integration between Web3 technology, Web3 tokenized real estate, and centralized government entities. But it's tricky in the United States. There's actually been a home sold as an NFT for $175,000 already in Georgia. And it happened through a company called Roofstock, which they sell real estate to retail investors already. So they've got a lot of experience, but they did a specialized deal where they did a KYC in depth with a specific person. This guy basically got special approval to do this deal. And then they set up an LLC as a special vehicle to be able to manage the ownership of the real estate property. And then whoever owns the NFT basically owns that house in real life. The LLC is legally required to basically transfer legal ownership to whoever owns the NFT. So it's already happening here in America. That happened last 2 months ago, I believe, here in the United States. But
in that example,
with
it
your
sounds
wallet.
like the LLC is acting as the smart contract. So
basically,
if the LLC wasn't in place, nobody would honor the fact that that NFT gives you the rights to the deed. And so the company is the smart contract. So it's not really on the blockchain. It's just the LLC is pretending to be the smart contract in this example, right? Am I misunderstanding?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it is technically, you could, the person who bought it with one click, you know?
Okay, so it was kind of like buying it on the blockchain, but not all the way. It's like
it's a paired relationship between a real life entity and a Web3 entity, and I think that may be the short term for integration, and then maybe we'll have a fully unified integration later on down the line, because I think it's going to be a step by step process.
I understand your question though, Andrew. I mean, you know, when there's a side to the argument that says that we need regulation on this. You know, who's to say that, you know, when you're doing a smart contract, who's regulating that smart contract? I mean, sure, you can get a bunch of people that we trust and we say, well, they know what they're talking about, and here's the group that has decided in a sort of democratization way that this is what the contract looks like. But what's to say that, you know, generations down the line, you know, let's take me for an example. My great grandkids decide to sell a property that I had bought on the blockchain, and that wasn't really regulated by the government, that there wasn't any sort of legal recourse for someone. Maybe what if someone alters it? You know, what if there's a way that in some
a lot of Web3
scenario
has been
it
hacked.
gets hacked and it's altered?
What if you get hacked and just your house gets stolen, man?
There's a in one sense we need the regulation, and in another it's like, well, why? You know, let's just eliminate it. I don't know. I'm on the fence with it.
Yeah, and one
it seems weird to have the ownership of a house online,
of having something like real estate or any property on the blockchain, like physical property rights on the blockchain. Let's say you minted it on Solana, and then Solana doesn't exist 20 years from now. You're handing down nothing now to your kids. So where does that property exist if that blockchain is no longer operational? So that's another thing where we're so early in this space, even big names could just vaporize. And so that's another challenge with tokenized real estate, of course. Now, of course, things like this could be migrated and what have you, and you would need humans to intervene to make sure that property is not lost.
Maybe it would need
it's
their
not
own
impervious. TSG, I got to kick this over to you. We've been talking about real estate. Most people can't afford to buy real estate. Do you see other items? There you go. Do you see other items being popular or interesting to be tokenized, other physical property to be tokenized for people to purchase? For people like you that don't want to leave your home, do you want to buy tokenized physical things, and what might those be?
Yeah. So in regards, I'll talk about the real estate thing a little bit, and then I'll move on to I think tokenizing smaller items, like you say, because we are so early, I think it's going to take baby steps. Tokenizing smaller items, and then kind of working up as we as a space, we as an industry become more, as a technology become more mature. Something that I do want to address that you mentioned about regulators not wanting it to go forward because it's going to take jobs away. If we follow that logic, that would mean that they're very against AI as well. And we know this, like, being in that technology industry, at some point they just like, it's going to be way more efficient to do it with AI and people losing jobs than it is to not do it that way. So if we follow that logic, they might be against like the tokenization of real estate and things like that, because a lot of the middlemen are going to lose jobs. But at some point, it's going to make so much sense that they can't say no to that. So that's my opinion on that. In regard to the actual tokenization of other objects, I think like not digital collectibles, not like PFPs and things like that. But one thing that I'm like a big part of, like not a big part, but hip hop is a big thing that I've been a part of. And I know something like sneakers, like there's a huge sneaker culture collection there. So, and we also know that there's a lot of like fakes. And also I live in China, so there's a lot of fakes out here. Like you see Yeezys everywhere, and none of these are real. So if you actually have like an NFT or something that's tokenized that actually verifies the validity of the authenticity of it, I think that's probably going to be the first step. So if you do buy it, you buy the NFT, you buy that peer to peer, and then that gets sent to you, and that verifies that it's a real thing. I think things like that is probably going to be where we really start to see adoption first, and then it's going to go up into like slightly bigger things. And then there are other things, NFTs.
Yeah, so there's already a company. My former boss created this one, doing exactly what you're talking about for sneakers.
Yeah.
It's basically sneakers minted on like Solana or whatever blockchain they chose. So this is already happening for sure, and it's easier to get something like this off the ground because governments don't care about stopping people from selling sneakers on the blockchain because that doesn't take away their jobs.
That makes sense too, right?
Whereas
Just
something like
proof
real estate would. So
exactly.
I agree. The small
Proof
ball
of-
items being sold with a digital tie-in
It's real.
is a much easier transition for the industry.
Or what about something like this, guys? I mean, this is what we were talking about in my class, right? As I was, Andrew mentioned that I'm part-time faculty over at Parsons. I teach a class on technology innovation, I should say. But this case study that we were looking at was identifying this company that was basically putting this sounds crazy, but a digital DNA into Colombian emeralds and diamonds. So I'm assuming everyone here is married. Maybe if you're not, or even if you're an audience member that isn't married, I think at some point we are going to start seeing luxury items, not just sneakers and collectibles, but diamonds, real jewelry, have this digital DNA that is based in the blockchain. That's what this company was doing. And I wish I should have sent it over to you, the screenshot.
It's okay. That's a cool concept, though, that opens up your mind to the possibilities. I didn't think about it injecting, let's say, digital identifiers or tags into premium items like gems and gemstones. You could maybe see a similar concept with jewelry.
Proof of authentic, proof of genuinity. Wow, that's one of the hardest words for me. But you know what I mean. Like you have proof of ownership, and then you also have the proof of genuinity, where you can prove because I have this NFT, this sneaker or whatever diamond is real. Like it's not the fake because it's connected with it. Like that makes a lot of sense in my mind. Because otherwise you always have like, you have some serial number on it, but it always seems very fishy to identify if this article is really authentic, really this collector item that's worth 50,000 or just a $5 mock-off.
Maybe even precious metals or other items of value, right?
1,000%. And I think it definitely, when you start talking about the social implications of purchasing diamonds from a mine, because when you think about am I having a good social impact? What do you mean by that? I mean, how was this diamond manufactured? Were the people that were mining the diamonds taken care of? How much were they paid? This is all information that could lay within that ledger of blockchain that you can then see or have a record of, and that provenance when you obtain that diamond or emerald or piece of jewelry. I mean, I think of the way, and I know none of us have ever probably bought jewelry from a Sotheby's auction, but when you do, at one point I was hosting a show over at Sotheby's, so I know this, but when you do purchase something, whether it's art or jewelry, they give you a long list of provenance: who owned it before, where has this piece, this luxury piece been, and and who has owned it. And I think as we evolve with the blockchain, and when we think about that tokenization, that is one thing that really that makes me focus on that. And especially too, what happens if your house gets broken into and all of your sneakers get stolen, your collectibles get stolen, or your engagement ring gets stolen, your wife's
You would have to have a chip in it, right? You would have to have a chip in the sneaker to scan it, and also to find it if it gets stolen and stuff like this.
This is one way that you can be able to make sure that you're tracking that. So
tagging, tracking, and identifying. Similar, yes, I mean, we do not a blockchain version, but we do this with pets right now.
Yes, exactly.
By putting tags into the pet so you can identify the pet. And obviously, the whole tracker technology is in the caveman stage. We now have mass commercial products like Apple AirTags that do something like this, but you have to have a physical disc. So having that embedded in all sorts of property is a brilliant way to potentially digitize physical items without, I think that's the connection that maybe is tough for people to accept. That you're telling me that this NFT or this digital, let's say, receipt for this physical item is valid. Well, it is valid if the digital, let's say, receiver end of the equation is embedded into the physical item. So let's say your house, you're really opening up my mind here. For things like tokenized real estate, what if in the foundation of that property, in the concrete, you have an NFT transmitter, whatever it's called, baked into the building? Now there's a physical
that makes sense.
Connection. Literally,
no, you can't get like hacked and just stolen because you need both parts.
I'm glad I brought you on.
It actually makes sense.
You need the physical and the digital.
Happy to be here.
Both ends of the equation to have the whole thing.
Let's talk about our next topic. Headwinds to all of these cool concepts actually happening. What do I mean by that? Well, let's talk about our friends, Mr. Tim Apple. That was one of my favorite names, gaffes of Trump's. Apple is charging a 30% NFT tax, my friends. Guys, post in the comments and in chat, who's in favor of a 30% tax on NFTs on your iPhone? You guys love it. I know you do. I know you do. And so the reason why I bring that up is that this is blocking a lot of the crypto industry, NFT industry, and the GameFi space. Think about it on the gaming side, everybody.
That's why you get
if
an
Apple
Android.
is going to charge 30%
That's actual financial advice,
in terms
everybody.
of gas fees on every NFT transaction on phones, what does that do? That makes it, drumroll please, impossible to transact NFTs through their marketplace. So what does that mean? It's literally impossible, if you know about gas fees, to charge 30% gas fees. The gas is transmitted on the blockchain. So to get the 30% gas fee, they'd have to charge 30% of that on top as an extra tax to then give to Apple. That's dumb.
That's insane.
And Apple has shut down access to Coinbase Wallet because Coinbase Wallet was transmitting NFTs. And they said, you can either turn that off or you can get out of the Apple App Store. And so this is basically putting the NFT industry or the blockchain industry on ice, with Apple providing no real solutions for people to transmit digital.
Why would they do that? Like, they're waiting so long on the sidelines, with NFTs and everything. Like, I don't think Apple made like big moves. And then their first move is like, yo, give me 30% of everything or fuck off. Like, that's their good first Web3 move. That's horrible. That's so bad. Like,
assets to each other.
I'm glad it's just Apple and not like
the phones in the world. So let's talk about this, because this is huge. And this also ties into Meta's move, which we all saw with Meta. And this was, people laughed about it, but they were dead serious. Meta wants a 50% cut of virtual asset sales in its metaverse. They don't want 30%, they want 50%.
Meta is already... nobody respects the company anymore, I feel like. And then they pull stuff like this that's
come on in.
Insane.
We'll take half of your business and half of what you work so hard to create. Is this good? Is this going to help the industry? Let's ask our first question.
What the fuck?
Apple
50%?
Taking a 30% tax from Web3. Is this going to work or fail gloriously?
Like the 7%
TFG?
or whatever it is on OpenSea is like...
Yo, that's tough.
Too much already.
a lot of the other times I've been on here, and a lot of my feelings have been that it's good for them to have for us to have a centralized metaverse, right? Because I feel like it's going to onboard a lot of people. But with this, it's like, they're putting multiple padlocks on the first door even getting in. So I don't know, like, any sane human being is not going to be willing to pay 30% or 50%. That's just mental. Like, it's just wild. So I don't know what the play is here. I really don't know what the play is here. Are they going to come up with something specific to them?
Place to get an
that
Android.
has a less
Screw
less
Apple, man.
Yeah, I honestly
I
don't
think
see
you're
that.
heading the right direction there. You went
Like
to
the
next
first thing, or the one thing that always annoyed me about Apple is that every phone company had their own charger, their own headphone, and everything, right? And then at one point, everybody was like, all right, screw that. We're all going to have the same USB charger. We're all going to have the same aux headphones, except for Apple. They needed to keep on their freaking exclusive gear and all their exclusive ports. So they are not compatible with anything. And it's just to sell more shit. And it's very not for the user. And yeah, this goes hand in hand with that ideology.
step.
Insane.
So if you're going to make it impossible for people to do business in a particular sector on your platform, why would you do that?
Yourself.
So
create
either number
yourself,
one, maybe you have legal considerations, right? Perhaps. Come on. Apple can just lobby their way into anything they want. Give me a break. They're worth $2.3 trillion. Or they are planning on getting a slice of that pie themselves. So GizmoSlip, do you feel like this is going to succeed? Apple making it difficult, if not impossible, to transact with digital assets. What are your thoughts?
My thought is that these companies are going to find ways to bypass, Apple, Google, Meta tax in some way. You may be able to play a game like Illuvium on an Apple device at some point, but I doubt it'll be going.
Just realizing I'm promoting Android, but I guess Google is not connected with Meta. So Google wasn't mentioned in
the
this.
App Store, or alternatively, there'll be ways to transact maybe in the Safari browser. You look at a company like Spotify, they launched an audiobook service recently. And to be able to sign up for the audiobook service, you have to click a link inside the app that then takes you to Safari browser where you do your payment system. So it's basically a way to bypass the existing payment system, the Apple tax, you might say. So you may end up something like that. It's like, okay, you want to do this trade in Illuvium, you click this button, then you go to the browser, do the trade with your Web3 wallet, then you go back into the app where the trade has already happened in the background and you've got your new Illuvial or whatever. So I'm not sure exactly how it's all going to play out, but I think
our developers are taking notes. Our blockchain team right now is taking notes. They're like, yes, Brandon, yes.
Netflix, right? With subscriptions?
It's insane. 30% it's not feasible for something like Illuvium where the value is supposed to be baked in for the consumer, because you're supposed to be able to buy an Illuvial and then you don't want to have to pay a 30% tax when you sell your Illuvials that have a lot of value.
Yeah. And what if there's no gas fee? So if you're on a near gasless platform like IMX, what's the fee for Apple to take? Okay, so let's say it's a fraction of a penny. We want 30% of that fraction of a penny. It's like, what? So the technology is getting better and better. Gas fees are going away. They're becoming a thing of the past. So the whole model of taking gas fees as a way to tax the NFT industry, it just doesn't make sense on multiple levels. Hitha, I've got one for you. So Apple isn't doing this with stock transactions, for example. They're not doing this to Robinhood. They're not doing this to Fidelity app. They're not doing this to the multi-trillion-dollar stock market industry. They're not doing this to eBay.
Yeah, because they couldn't.
They're not doing this to all sorts of marketplaces that are selling all sorts of things that are maybe like similar or adjacent to the NFT or digital assets market. If you were to speculate, why are they targeting this space and not those? Isn't there a lot more money to be made in the stock market? What are your thoughts?
I think it is a double-edged sword when it comes to this. And I'm not trying to speak in generalities, but hear me out. On one hand, we don't want government regulation as NFT creators or purchasers of NFTs to come in and tell us what we can and cannot do. right? And on the other, we want government regulation to put
I'll be
down
right back.
their foot
Gotta get some
when
water in
our
peace.
NFTs get hacked and stolen, and when we have to fight on who owns what. So I think I'll answer that question first, and then I'll answer the question about why Apple doesn't tax the financial markets. But I think we have to determine as purchasers of NFTs and creators whether or not that is going to be worth it, especially now. To your point, Andrew, this is a nascent industry for the most part. I mean, for us, we've been in it for a while, so it doesn't seem that new. But for someone like my mother who's 77 and she's like, what's an NFT? Do I need this? There's people out there, majority of the people out there like that. So will this tax be less and less and less over the next 5 to 10 years? For sure. But then we have to think about the philosophical question, what role does government play in all of this? Now, Apple, and when it comes to taxes too, illuvium is based in Australia. So are we talking about a global tax on NFTs? Are we talking about a global tax on transactions? Because from what I understand, the tax varies from country to country. So why Apple doesn't tax the markets? I mean, that's exactly comes down to it. The U.S. government, the U.S. markets are regulated in a totally different way than, let's say, the FTSE in London and the Hang Seng in Hong Kong. So when you do transactions, it's going to be very, very different. It just comes down to federal regulations per country, and then obviously we get down to state regulations. I want to bring up the whole tax, the Amazon tax per state that we talked about many, many years ago. When I say we collectively as a country talked about, because I was on air talking about this on television. I don't know if you and I talked about this, Andrew, but
I remember you talking about it when we were producing shows and stuff together, but yeah.
This Amazon state tax that was going on per state. So let's say, we're in the United States. I know the show is probably being watched globally. But if you have a tax-free holiday, let's say at the beginning of, back to school, you go out there, shop for things for your kids, and you happen to be in Texas and you purchase items in California, well, you're not going to get that tax-free holiday. So that there are a whole lot of factors involved here. And that is why I think it is really important as creators and as purchasers that you understand what the regulation is, where you are based, because it's going to vary from country to country and province to province and state to state. So it kind of comes back down to the consumer and the creator. I know that's a very general answer.
That is great insight to have. I just wanted to point out one thing though. So they're saying Apple right now, at least to US vendors, they're saying you need to use our payment system to be able to transact to get digital assets. But their payment system does not support crypto.
Yeah.
That's the part that it doesn't fit exactly in the narrative you're saying. So if they had a functional system that could work and they're just implementing NFT taxes based on jurisdiction, cool. But their system literally doesn't support crypto. And so they're saying you must transact using our system, but it doesn't work. And if it did work, we would take 30%. Sound good? Oh, take your app off our store. We're going to shut you down.
Well, and they also do this thing where they say, well, you know what? We have the distribution. If you want your app to be seen, we will pump that up and we will make sure that everyone in the App Store sees that, and you're going to get more transactions and more customers. But hey, those transactions, to your point, Andrew, they have to be done in US dollars or whatever centralized currency you're using, and then we're going to take that tax on it. So you're absolutely right. It's beyond ridiculous. There's other platforms that you can buy and sell and create your NFTs and have those purchased on crypto. But Apple has that they hang that thing over creators, that they dangle that carrot. We'll go ahead and distribute that out for you. You get the eyeballs, but we're going to take that tax. It's the eyeball tax.
It's
Crazy.
the gatekeeper model.
That's the thing, right? Like, it doesn't really matter if Apple does that. I think the Web3 community will not buy into that, and Apple is gonna lose and is gonna go back on that. Like, as long as not, like, this is decentralized. The idea behind that is that we're not dependent on any of those big companies. They can try to lure us in with their big market share and everything, but like they have no force, no power over the community, and so just it's ridiculous.
Brandon, I want to kick this over to you, and I want to ask you if you're interested in speculating about Apple's motivations. So the reason why I bring that up is obviously there's rumors of their AR VR headset and that being in development, and they have lots of patents that have been filed, websites, things like that. It's obvious that Apple is investing into this, right? Exactly what they have planned, we don't know for sure. So I want to kick this over to you. Is this a part of the equation here with the Apple tax? Is that they don't want to be giving market share to other players in the space that they're planning to kick this over to you? Is this a part of the equation here with the Apple tax?
Piece of plastic?
Is that they don't want to be giving market share to other players in a space that they're planning to launch into hard? I'll kick it over to you since you're so familiar with the technology side. I'll let you speculate. What do you think?
I love VR, and I think Apple will probably create the best AR VR headset because they have excellent camera technology, which would make great mixed reality. They also have excellent chipset technology for their processors. Like they're the best processors, basically the most power efficient, most powerful processor per watt. Compared to Intel and Snapdragon, there's lots of advantages to these Apple chips. And so I think they'll make a great AR mixed reality or VR headset that'll be very high resolution and probably have a decent battery life and comfortable ergonomic, but it'll probably cost like $2,000, be very expensive. That said, yes, I do think that you're going to look at, Apple is going to be looking to compete in a space. I think the key here for an app like Illuvium and other Web3 companies trying to sell digital assets, the key here is to try to get them categorized not in that 30% Apple tax, because obviously Apple doesn't charge a 30% tax if I sell my ILV on the Binance app, right? The markets are not taxed with that 30% tax, including the crypto markets, market apps. But at the moment you start selling the NFTs, they start taxing it. So that's the key. And I think we want to lobby Apple, maybe try to get some kind of a lawsuit going as a community or something, because it's not going to be feasible or realistic to have Apple charging 30% tax when the rest of the metaverse is not on that tax. So why would anyone be transacting on the Apple platform? So they do all their transactions off platform and then come back.
Are you trying to start a class action lawsuit live on my show? That's crazy.
I'm in.
Well, that's interesting.
I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. But I mean, it's
who's jumping in on this class action lawsuit? Who's coming with me?
No, I'm speculating, but I think it is one of the only ways we might be able to get Apple to change their mind on this, to reduce the tax to a reasonable level. Under 5% is I think the maximum they could probably realistically charge. But
it's insane that Apple,
it's tough.
They're smart people. It's a smart company, right?
You have the users, you have the power, and unless the government steps in.
It sounds so arrogant of them that they're like, oh, we're Apple. We can charge 30%.
I think that would be the key approach there.
What?
Do you guys remember that scene in Old School when, I forgot his name, but he's running down the street naked and his wife is behind him. He doesn't realize, and he's like, come on, everyone, let's go streaking. I feel like that's what Gizmo
Such a good scene.
He just tried to do
brought it up.
He tried to do that in the legal space. Yeah.
Will Ferrell. It was Will Ferrell running down the street naked. Come on, everyone, let's go.
Anyway. No one wants to take on
I gotta
Apple's
watch the
legal
movie
team.
again.
All right. Here's everybody's chance to provide your final thoughts on these topics, and I'll give it to TSG. So, two-parter, buddy. Give me your final thoughts on these topics, and then tell everyone where they can find you on the internet if they want to hear more of your genius thoughts that only come from your home and not from the real world.
Not from outside, yeah. I don't know what's
That's a new
outside.
running gag.
Yes. So my final thoughts regarding, I'll kind of hit them all off. So regarding the real estate thing, I think there's real value and real merit to what's happening. I think we're just very, very early. And I think we will get there. It's just going to take time, and it's going to take smaller chunks. In regards to the tokenization of items, I'm actually more excited about the tokenization of like communities and like membership cards. I brought this up with you before, Andrew, on this podcast. I think things like that are actually going to onboard people more than like specific items. I think
You're referring to like
memberships,
Starbucks stuff, that
yeah,
sort of
gym
like.
memberships, Starbucks.
Mhm.
I feel like things like that, it just make a lot more sense to onboard people first. That's my thought there. And in regards to the whole Apple thing, yeah, I still believe that they're kind of just doing this to kind of keep everyone else out until they get their things ready and in line for them to take that shot. So that's kind of where I'm at. I'm most interested in the two topics of tokenization and what Apple is doing. I'm not looking at real estate. I'm just interested from an outside perspective. But it will be cool to see how that works. I think that will change the fabric of like how we do things, like in regards to society, cutting out middlemen like that. I think that's just one example of how that could work. But anyway, yeah, I'm not going to take too much more time. Where to find me? I've got a YouTube channel, obviously. Link is going to be in the description. TSG Illuvium. Oh, there you go. You got it. I've been going pretty crazy with the content recently, but yeah.
Dude,
Otherwise,
look at
catch me
these
in
thumbnails, man. You
Discord.
got the 1-star review here. You got the YouTube face over here. Snoop Dogg and Illuvium clickbait. I mean, seriously,
Yo,
man. Well
I
done.
mean, that was the Komodo dragon. That was you. I mean, I went off your words. Did you not say that it was heavily Snoop Dogg inspired? I'm blaming you for that one, man.
I said Snoop Dogg inspired. I didn't say Snoop Dogg was in Illuvium, but you know what? You're playing the
Man.
game, and I'm proud of you.
I'm playing the game.
Yeah. Well done. Thank you. Brandon, GizmoSlip. I heard that's a thing. You have the logo in the background. Where can people find you, and what are your closing thoughts on this topics?
So my tech focus channel is GizmoSlip Tech, which you can see here. It's just youtube.com/GizmoSlipTech, where I do tech reviews on computer products. And then my main channel, GizmoSlip, I haven't been posting as much content there, but I probably will in the future. My main closing thought on this topic is that any industry that has heavy fees, heavy annoyances to them, like buying and selling a home, buying and selling a car, I think these are probably going to be the most heavily incentivized markets for Web3 adoption eventually. But the integration is still far off, and I hope that it does happen eventually. But there's so many, it's a complex issue. And so there's so many issues to address regarding home ownership, recovering a lost asset, smooth transitions, government tax, making sure that any dividends that the property earns are being paid out, and tax liabilities for everyone that owns the token. There's so many different layers to the cookie and to the onion, if you will, that it's going to be difficult to unwrap this and make it a thing in reality. But I think people are highly incentivized to make it a thing. And so it will eventually happen, most likely, I think. It's just going to take time.
Great thoughts. Hitha, where can people find you other than literally everywhere? And what are your final thoughts?
Literally everywhere. Well, I think the best way to find me is on Twitter. I am fairly active on there, although I haven't really updated today. So you can always find me on Twitter, or you can hit me up on my website, hithaherzog.com. I am there. Yeah, see, oh, that's me. There we go. Yes, that's me.
Correspondent.
And my
Fashion.
shoes. Wow.
Fashion able in parentheses. Look at this
Fashion
branding. New
able.
Yorker. Look at you.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes. When it comes to retail, I want everyone to think about this statistic. This is from a recent study I worked on with Oracle called the Happiness Research Report. It's actually came out a couple months ago, but 45% of people in the last 2 years haven't experienced happiness. So 45% of people that we interviewed. So
that's rough.
With that said,
I hope you guys
people are
are
going to try to make
on the
themselves happy
on
any
the
way
55%.
possible. And there's a whole thing about retail therapy. When people go shopping, it makes them happy. But also when people hang out at home and with their creature comforts, it also makes them happy too. So do I think that Web3 or Web2 or digital commerce is going away anytime soon? Definitely not. This is just going to add to the happiness of people and how they basically make themselves feel better. We are experiencing a lot of economic headwinds and just emotional headwinds. So I think that is definitely not going to go away. Again,
I gotta cut in there. Like, for real happiness, everybody, don't go shopping. That's not gonna give you real happiness. Consuming, there is no real happiness in consuming. There is real happiness in creating stuff, in like going after your passion. And most of all, real happiness comes from going outside your house and apartment, and especially going into the nature. Like getting a nice forest walk in, going, I don't know, biking, snowboarding, surfing. That's just my favorites. And just like for a happy mind, you need a healthy body, and for a healthy body, you need to move and you need to be in the nature and you need exercise. You can't sit all day around on your ass and expect to get happy. And I've learned this the hard way. And I've been addicted to my computer for the better part of my life. And yeah, just let me tell you, if you're not happy right now, go outside and do something in the nature, move your body, and that's gonna make you feel happy. Play a game of basketball with friends, do something, you know? There is 1 million things you can do outside, and it's gonna help you a lot with happiness, I would say.
Rural sellers, small businesses here in the United States, on average, are making about $65,000 from digital sales and third-party marketplaces. This is from the other study I worked on at Data Catalyst Institute. So this is, again, not going away anytime soon. So I think that aspect of retail is here to stay. When it comes to tokenization, I told you about these luxury items. And for someone that has researched, investigated, and followed criminals that steal luxury items and sell them on the black market, this is a real solution that makes a lot of sense. Is the technology there yet? No, but will it get there? Yes. And then, of course, when it comes to taxes, it's that age-old this double-edged sword that we deal with. Do we want government intervention? Do we not? Again, we're at a nascent stage of this whole thing. So do I think that tax will eventually go away? For sure. Is it painful now? For sure.
That's such a good point. All of the rhetoric over the last 2 years since I've been following crypto on the regulation side is we want the government to stay out, but we also want them to provide regulation. And then now that the FTX debacle happened, Celsius, Voyager, they're like, where were you at? Well, in one side of your mouth, you're saying, stay out of my wallet, not your keys, not your crypto, and libertarians, go, go, go. I've got guns in my home, in my safe, and all that type of anti-government rhetoric. And the second something bad happens, it's like, somebody fired Gensler because he effed up.
Exactly.
So you can't have it both ways. And I think that's a really good point. And the thing I want to tell go ahead.
I was going to say the key there, I think, is you want to protect the users and empower them while not restraining them with regulation. That's kind of the approach I would try to recommend for crypto regulation. So
an impossible balance. Yeah, there he is. I love that. It's an impossible balance that sometimes you can get into the sweet spot, and then for the most part, somebody will always think you're doing it wrong. There is one thing I want to tell everyone, and that is go to illuvium.buzzsprout.com to listen to the audio version of this show on the go. I edit it, make it sound great, so that our genius guests sound even better. Go check out and subscribe on literally every single podcast platform in the entire world. illuvium.buzzsprout.com. I want to thank all my guests for joining me on the show today. I really appreciate your time. And we've got a special live stream coming up literally tomorrow evening, where we're going to be revealing for the first time a full hour of overworld gameplay uncut with our senior development team here in Illuvium. It's scheduled on the channel. Be there, get notified. That one's going to be fun. And I'll see you in the next episode of Illuva Talks. That one will be Illuvium Insider. Adios, everybody. And I'll leave you with a little bit of original soundtrack music from Illuvium as we cut out here. See you guys.
Thank you, Andrew. That was amazing. Really, really good podcast. I enjoyed that. I'm going to do that more often. I hope all of you guys enjoyed it as well. If you did enjoy it, let me know in the comments down below. I gotta find out what content you guys love the most. So just let me know, I'm very, very glad for any input you give me on that. And my closing thoughts, I just wanted to come back on that happiness thing that I just talked about. Another really, really important point for happiness, I think, are social connections. And I myself have to take myself on the collar and drag myself out there. And when somebody invites me, I need to go. If there's a party, I should go. Like just getting out there, meeting people, having a nice time with fellow people. is so important for our mental health. And what TSG said earlier, when everybody had that moment where you accepted the invitation to a party and then you're hoping it's not happening because you actually don't want to leave your house, like, that comes from routine, I think. If you're used to canceling and not saying no to people because you got this to do or that to do, that fast becomes a routine where you just try to stay in your own comfort zone, in your own four walls. But it's going to be so important for us to break through the comfort zone, go out, meet people, meet our fellow humans and connect to them and just bond and create genuine human connections. Alrighty, that's it for me. Subscribe to the channel, please. I really need that for the algorithms and everything on YouTube. It's free. If you like this content, if you stayed so long in the video, might as well hit that subscribe button, right? I see you probably tomorrow. Tune back in when we're back at it again, probably with some Illuvium gameplay. And until then, peace out. Adios. Have a good one. Adios. Bye-bye. See you then. I'm doing a Ludwig and I'm ending it like a Ludwig. I've been watching too much Ludwig though. It's too good. Anyway,